Welcome back, everyone. Mike McConville here one more time. Thanks for joining us. It is Saturday morning, and I've got something kind of a little unusual to show you here. We've all seen various versions of the sort of knockdown guitar. There's been a few of them come and go, and portable guitars and transportable guitars. This is something that's kind of new, certainly new to me. And there's quite a few aspects of this guitar that I find very intriguing. It's built so that it can fit into the overhead compartment when you're flying. So I've got to bring you in to have a closer look at this. Before I put the neck on, I just wanted to show you the mechanism, spring-loaded indexing pin, and that thick threaded fastener that allows you to put the neck on quickly, and it aligns perfectly. And you've got this metal stop. So between that metal stop and this very thick, finely threaded rod and the spring-loaded indexing pin, it allows you to put the guitar neck on and off multiple times and get it right every time. Kind of fascinating, actually. This is all solid wood, by the way, but this is how quickly you can index this neck. Now, I know that the customer had said you don't even have to loosen off the strings, but I'm going to loosen them off, and I'll explain it in a second why. Push this into place. So that pin has indexed. Now, you flip it over, and this is how you tighten up that big, thick, finely threaded fastener. And the machining is such that you'd break your fingers before you could ever strip that fastener. So it's all done by hand. Okay, so let's flip it over. It does have an adjustable truss rod, and it is in desperate need of adjustment. There is way too much bow in the neck. Now these strings are loosened right off too. We're going to start by tightening the truss rod up and see what we get. I'm positive that we're going to need to dress this. Although it's not really a neck to body joint per se, Taylor, Martin, Larrivee, Gibson. This portion of the neck is like a Strata or Tele, where it's a big square block of mahogany. It's not that this portion of the neck swells up, it just doesn't budge in relation to the rest of the neck that's been carved away, and that part is quite flexible. That doesn't flex. That's why we're going to need to dress these frets to get this action down so it's slick and perfectly in tune. The other thing is we're going to drop down from 12 to 53 to 11 to 52. We're going to do a compensated bridge saddle and a compensated nut. There were two complaints the customer had. He loved the convenience of the guitar, the fact that it was solid wood, that it breaks down and assembles quickly, stored in the overhead compartment on the airlines. Beautiful. But it was horrible to play and was a mile out of tune. That's what we're going to address. So let's start with the truss rod. Now let's see how the truss rod reacts. Okay, this is a two-way truss rod because I just went through the neutral zone. It actually had negative pressure on it, so I'm going to just see. I don't know if the camera's picking this up or not. I'll have a look in a second. It will definitely need a fret dressing. Give it a little bit more torque on there. Check it again. The camera's kind of in the way of my own sight lines. Wow, that looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm happy with that. But I can see it will need to be dressed for sure. Now on the treble side, it looks like it's going in a bit of a back bow. Well, the truss rod is definitely working and doing its thing, but what's happened now, I tightened it and then backed it off, and this was never taken care of at the factory, is we've got a high spot right in here. So we're changing the nut anyway. This string guide is coming off. We're putting new strings on. So the next step is to get complete access to that fingerboard from the first fret to the last and get this thing leveled, recrowned, and polished. In case you haven't noticed, there's a huge discrepancy between the bass side and the treble side of the body. The depth of the body is much deeper on the treble side than it is on the bass side. And how much deeper is it? Well, this is 10.3 centimeters, and on this side it is 12.5. So it's thinner here, thicker here. Interesting. I wonder how the Plek machine would handle something like this. Well, I know how I'm going to handle it. All of this stuff is coming off. We'll say goodbye to those strings because we're stepping it down to 11 to 52. I remember when Martin came out with that little stick guitar, what was it called, a backpacker, and you know, I mean, come on, Martin. It's pretty Mickey Mouse. But I guess, you know, some people obviously like the things. They sold a few of them, but this is kind of like a real guitar. It's got a real body depth. I mean, wait till you hear it. It's pretty impressive. Okay, got to heat this guy up. Take that off. Oh, yeah, by the way, these are locking tuners, no less. So now that we got that nut out of the way, we can get at this trouble spot and address that. The rest of the neck seems to be pretty good. Seem to do it. Yeah, we do have a high spot here. Let's take care of that as well. going to start by putting that original nut back in. We'll check the height of the action and the intonation at the bridge first. Now that we've cleanly removed that nut, we're going to put it right back on because we're stepping the strings down. I will walk you through all of the details that I went through to get this guitar to behave itself. But before we do, I will go through the proverbial tuning test, and you can see and hear for yourself. Here we go. I've got these foam mutes in here to stop any sympathetic overtones, so we get a clear fundamental note. Now we can discuss some details. The low E string, as you can see, the natural slot stops here. This string would have never been in tune. The A string as well goes back beyond the confines of the original slot. The D falls within the confines of that original slot from the factory. The G cantilevers over this side of the slot. You can see that this guitar would have never been even close to being in tune without these alterations. The B string falls within the confines of the actual slot that was cut at the factory, and the high E also does. So you got 1, 2, 3 strings that fall within the confines of that original slot that was cut, and you've got 3 that aren't even close. Normally, if it was a typical Martin or Gibson bridge, I would have filled the slot, done the calculations like you've seen me do in past videos, and then re-slot and make a cantilevered saddle that cantilevers towards the sound hole. But in this case, because that slot was so close to the CNC'd edge here, made it way too risky to fill and then slot that close to the edge. That was the reasoning behind the decision I made. The radius matches the fingerboard, and in the end, as you can see, I had to cantilever the top 3 strings forward, the bass 3 strings back. I've never had to do that before. Most important thing is it works, and for the first time since this guitar was manufactured, it's perfectly in tune. I wanted to show you the guitar from this angle so you can see on the upper bout, this is 12 centimeters from the surface of the soundboard to the surface of the back on the treble side. And on the bass side, it's 10.5. It's a fairly extreme wedge. There's a look at the locking tuners, and there's another look at the stainless steel dish and this mechanism that allows you to cinch the neck tight. It's interesting that there is no head brace. There's a strap on either side, but what you see here is the actual head block that receives the neck. And you can see on the bottom it's extended as well. So it's essentially like a huge glued up chunk of mahogany to support this mechanism, allowing the neck to come off and on and off and on. And incidentally, I did break it down, take the neck off, and put it back on 2 or 3 times just to verify all of the setup that I did to make sure that it would maintain that. So I'm very impressed with the stability of this neck joint. I've seen a lot of neck joints in my time, and Robert Godin for decades was the guy that was sort of trying all these new things, and then Taylor came along and more or less mimicked what he did. Of course, Framus preceded Robert Godin with a bolt-on neck, and there's been many other configurations. Of course, Martin offer a bolt-on neck now. It seems like Gibson, Larrivee, and Santa Cruz are the last holdouts for the traditional dovetail. Of course, the Breedlove guitars, Collings guitars, they're all some configuration of fasteners and bolts to hold the neck on. Just to wrap it up, this one here, overall, I'm quite impressed with this guitar. The fact that it's all solid wood, top, back, sides, and bracing. Obviously, there's a concern here for the intonation, and these guitars will not be in tune unless this alteration is made. We'll take a quick look at the compensated nut, and then we can bring it in and actually plug it in. It does have a K&K type system with 3 transducers, so no batteries. Let's have a look at that nut, and then we'll bring this into the studio. Well, that's what we've got. A nice, even elliptical curve just ahead of the end of the fingerboard, and then this string guide that keeps the strings attached to the string posts when you break the neck down. The other thing that I liked about this guitar is the string spacing is nice and wide, lots of room. You could play classical guitar music on this. I did quite a bit of work on the frets, leveling, recrowning, polishing, and edge dressing to bring this right up to snuff. But it plays wonderfully, and the voice is not too bad for a little travel guitar. Impressive. And in case you haven't noticed, it's pool noodle season again. I've just loaded up this tech deck with fresh foam. $1.50 for a 3-foot length of these foam pool noodles. Perfect for jamming the tools into place. Here's the trough on the bottom end of the body platform. I prefer that green to the blue because the tools stand out against it more. Don't forget to drop by and say hi at the Elmira Vintage Guitar Show coming up April 21st. We'll be there, and there'll be some cash and carry deals. It was so nice at last year's show to sort of bump into all these former students and tech deck guys that have been using their tech decks, some of them for up to 15 years. So this is a look at my setup. Just loaded up both tech decks, kind of ready for this coming week. By the way, there will also be some envelopes of compensated nut blanks, so available for cash and carry at the Elmira show. Be sure to stop by and say hi. It'd be great to see you guys. All right, time to go in the house and take this Journey guitar for a spin. So I loop this progression. So we'll let that play. So this is another loop. So I'm going to let that play.